Hello and welcome back to Core Finance. I'm Matt Brown. I'm joined by Shaun Richards from Notayesmaneconomics. We're going to look at Bitcoin, an unregulated cryptocurrency, reaching or smashing through the $10,000 mark, a key psychological level. What's your take on Bitcoin? Good, bad, ugly? Is this going to cause economic problems, or is it something that investors should be looking at or be very aware of?
Well, there are quite a lot of issues here. If we start with just the simple one, is the change in the price. I wrote a thing on it just before the turn of the year, and at that point it seemed extraordinary that it made $971, I think, was on that date, 29th of December, I think, last year. Now we find, this morning when I was looking at it, not only had it gone through 10,000, it was over 10,500 at one point. So there's been an extraordinary gain. If we look at it in economics terms and think of the issues of actually what is money, some of the boxes it's beginning to tick. Various places do take it, obviously not everywhere, in fact nowhere near everywhere. Where I think though people have been a bit misleading is the issue as whether it's been a store of value, because the conventional view is it's not, because the price varies a lot each day. Now it does vary a lot each day, or it is at the minute. However, if you change the time period and look over the past year, you would be quids in, euros in, dollars in, however you want to put it, wouldn't you? So from your point of view, you'd thought it was a fantastic store of value because you've got 10 times your money.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of factors in play here. I noticed the Bank of England's mentioned it this morning, and if we move to the regulation issue, obviously this is a deal for them. And there's two sides to this coin. One is they're looking at it because they'll be thinking of it as a problem, something outside their control. But also it's their fault. The reason why it is their fault is that I think a lot of people are concerned about what the central banks have done with what we'd call fiat money, splashing that around the system. That's led to fears, which has led to people thinking there is another way, or possibly. Then more recently, there's factors that come in. About 2-3 weeks ago, the European Central Bank put out an opinion piece saying it might change the deposit protection rules. Now that obviously moves people out of banks on the question of that maybe the €100,000 limit will change. Just to be clear, it hasn't. It's just suggesting it might. And then suddenly, it doesn't take a lot of that for there then to be money available for that. There's the ongoing issues around China, money wanting to get out of that. And so you get a flood of money into something, and that's how we find something like this, which in the scale of things, 150 billion or whatever it's worth now, actually in dollar terms it must be worth more than that because the price has gone up. But if we look at the scale of the things, money out of China, people looking to move out of things, one can see how this has happened. Now if you come back to the issue of whether this is a bubble or not, it depends how you look at it. If you look at the surge in the price, then that just looks silly, doesn't it? Why is it worth 10 times as much? If you look at some of the factors I've described before, you can see to people, whilst it might look logical, to put some money into it. And on that basis, it could carry on. Although these things are very dangerous. One of my former work colleagues from the past was a great fan of bowl theory, which goes as follows. You look at the chart of it, and you draw a bowl behind it, and any time it drops through it, that's a time to get put options or something like that, because it will drop a long way, 20-30%, something like that.
And put options will be available potentially soon if the CME give the go-ahead to the Bitcoin future, and which in turn there will be options available.
Yes, and this is that's a very good point, because there are all issues on this as well. I mean, I've followed various different futures markets now, rather scarily, for nearly 30 years, and you think of how is the issue when this is anonymous, or supposed to be anonymous, so I've got to be careful about that. I'm not an expert in that field. But then you have delivery into something. Well, delivering what? How is all that going to work? Having spent in the past quite a bit of time on issues like cheapest to deliver into the gilt future, you think was a simple thing. But there were times when there were quite a lot of issues over that, for example. Now, something like Bitcoin, how? So there's a lot of questions around that. And then once this gets going, as you say, where does it go? There's so much paranoia in certain places about how gold's manipulated. How's this going to work in Bitcoin? You know, so there's a whole raft of issues like that. And of course, on the other side of the thing is the fact that the very start of a futures market, is that the sign of a top in itself? that everyone's trying to move in. And of course, the fundamental issue here on the two sides of the regulation issue is, of course, the whole point of it is it's unregulated. It's money that wants to come on the other side.
Exactly.
You know, and if we go back to the Jamie Dimon critique of JP Morgan, then I thought one bit that he said on it was just simply breathtaking, to say that Bitcoin is financial crime. Look what his own bank has done. Look what the other banks have done. So there's a whole raft of issues in one go, but each morning, one way or t'other, the changes are spectacular, aren't they?
Incredible move to the upside. Let's see if that will continue. But in the meantime, Shaun Richards, not a Yes Man Economics. Thank you very much for joining us here today.